friends, and welcome to episode 108 of Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. I'm Kimberly, your host, and I am super excited to be here with you today. Did You Bring the Hummus is a podcast for all things vegan. Episodes post every Monday on your favorite podcast app. Before we get started, I have one very important question for you. Did you bring the hummus? Do you love the podcast? Want to help me keep it going? Visit the Support the Podcast tab on my website to learn more. Join me on alternating Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. for an hour of meditation. Sign-up options include individual sessions, a monthly subscription, or a 10-session package good for 6 months. I have joined forces with Jennifer Shlomovich of The Confident Vegan to bring you the next great thing in morning TV, That Vegan Morning Show, which airs on YouTube every Monday at 7 a.m. Eastern. Join our mailing list and get a free recipe ebook of some of our favorites. Today, I am joined by podcast host extraordinaire, Michele Olender of Vegan at Any Age. Michele proves that it's never too late to go vegan. A life coach and podcaster who went vegan at age 56, Michele knows how to help you move in a vegan direction without blowing up your life. On her Vedge Your Best podcast, she translates the tools of life coaching, philosophy, and behavior change to help you start, restart, or re-energize your vegan lifestyle. With over 250 consecutive weekly episodes, Michele meets you wherever you are on your vegan journey. She is also committed to introducing new voices and amplifying the work of veteran vegans around the world. Michele holds a certificate in plant-based nutrition from the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies at Cornell, a BA from Smith College, and an MA in the history of art. As a lifelong language learner and history nerd, Michele believes there has never been a better time to be an autodidact. She and her husband have 7 grandchildren, live most of the year near the Atlantic Ocean, and love to search out vegan options near historic sites in North America and Europe. Michele has lots of inspiration for you in this episode. Let's go. Hey, Michele, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here with me today.
Kimberly, it's such a pleasure. We've been talking back and forth for almost a year, I think, trying to figure something out. And I think I reached out to you to be on my podcast first, and this happens all the time. I end up being on the other podcast first.
We'll get there, though, because I'm super excited to join you on Vedge Your Best as well. So, Michele, as we always get started here at Did You Bring the Hummus? Tell me about your vegan journey.
Okay. Well, I've heard a lot of vegan journeys on your podcast, and I've spoken to many people about theirs. Mine, really, as a vegan journey, nothing started at all until my 50s, when one of my children was on her vegan journey. And in my concern as a mom for her in every way, I started educating myself. I started learning about, she was an athlete, so I was very concerned about her fueling herself well. And then, long story short, I would go to restaurants or go out places or, bakeries or sandwich places, and I would find myself saying, well, I'm bringing something to my daughter. She's vegan. What have you got that's vegan? And I started to learn before my choices. I started to learn how was I going to model for her how to advocate for herself? How was I going to have her say, "Oh, really? Just Diet Coke and French fries? Okay, I guess that's what it is." So I had quite a while of practicing on someone else's behalf. And at some point, I think I can overthink the details of what made me finally just, I always say, stop pulling the trigger on the foods I chose. I had become what I've talked about in my podcast a lot. I was an excusitarian. I was vegan unless there was what seemed to me a decent excuse, which was being in someone else's home and they didn't have anything, or it was a family or traditional gathering, or we were traveling in another country. This was hard for me because I love to travel in Europe, and I would be in places where people were proud of their artisanal products that were, centuries old. And I'd find myself having a hard time saying, no, I don't eat that. So
Mm.
it took me a while, is the long and short of it. But I would say basically my full commitment to really not eating any animal products knowingly ever again was when I was about 56, and that is almost 10 years ago.
That's amazing. What happened in that moment that made you go, all right, I'm
Um,
done here.
I think I looked for an excuse to encourage other people for their health. I lost my dad that year
Mm.
to a just a massive, massive heart event, and I realized I had no interest in losing my husband. And even though he was in great shape, it was just kind of, I used it a little bit. I used the health concepts to help for others, to help me draw a line in the sand for my personal behavior. So health wasn't immaterial because it was something I was concerned about for my daughter when I was learning. And I always say that the podcasts taught me how to be vegan. Podcasts, and they were so often middle-aged white men, ultra endurance athletes. So, so I think they gave me a little bit of comfort that, listen, if they can fuel themselves, bigger, more athletic,
Mhm.
ultra endurance people, then certainly I'll be able to figure this out.
That's that's so interesting. And I love how your daughter kind of got you to start without just by making her own choice and making her own decisions about what was best for her life, and that your love and care for her brought you to like, all right, let's see about this. And you came to it from almost like a fear perspective, right? I've got to make sure she's okay. This can't hurt. I want to make sure she's not hurting herself making this decision. And such like a loving mom way to approach it with what seemed like no idea how much it was going to change your own life.
Zero idea, no idea whatsoever. No. And, I feel that I grew up um, with a uh, moderate knowledge of everything involved with animal agriculture, not food lots, no. But what's involved? My mom was a farm girl, and I wasn't under a lot of illusions about where food came from. I used to fish as a kid growing up, uh, and I certainly, if I thought even remotely that it was possible to live a normal existence without eating animals, I would have been drawn to it. But it never occurred to me that that would be possible, that it was
Mhm.
one of these injustices that at our moment in time was the one we were faced with, one of the ones that we're faced with. And it was just, I'm a historian by training and by nature. And it just seemed like this is where we're at right now.
And then your daughter showed you a new way.
Showed me a new way. And I'm not sure that she would have figured it out in the same. Well, I remember being in Paris with her and she was not eating vegetables. And I was like, okay, to be vegan, darling, I don't know what you're going to eat. You need to eat. I have to see you eating something that's going to fuel you. What is
Right.
there? And I've
Mhm.
said, and I remember, and I have some guilt about it at this point. I mean, I still remember thinking, I said, I think you need to choose something. You need to choose either dairy, eggs, fish, or chicken. You need to choose one of those for this trip because otherwise you're not going to be able to eat anything and you won't eat anything. And so I remember that as one of the last times I ever insisted on anybody eating an animal. So, yeah. And so it's what, and more than anything, this idea of that journey has made me extremely humble about all the things I don't see and I don't see an alternative to
Mm.
right now. So I'm not one of these people who thinks that we've come to the end of our issues when we can stop using animals, consuming animals. I think it's just really the beginning, which can be daunting for some people to think, if I start on this, am I going to have to rethink everything? And my answer is always yes. And we just can't do it all the same day.
Yeah. No, you have to choose your starting point and then build from there for sure.
Mm.
Yeah, like your daughter, when I decided to go vegetarian, I went vegetarian first back in 2001. I didn't eat vegetables either. And my parents were like, we'll see how long this lasts because what are you going to eat? And they were like, there's no way it's going to stick. And I was like, okay, I've got to learn how to eat vegetables and how to like vegetables and I ate a ton of pasta smothered in cheese so that I was eating, but I was reading books and starting to understand and very slowly learned how to cook because I also didn't know how to cook, not even
Mm.
animal based meals. I had no idea what to do in the kitchen. And so it was a significant learning curve for me, the whole thing. And now, like, I am so happy in the kitchen. I love vegetables. I love exploring and trying new things. But I had to choose something. Like you said, I had to choose my starting point. And my starting point was I know that I can boil water and make pasta. I know I can melt cheese over it. I'm gonna start reading and I'm gonna learn. And I did. I built on that, but that was my starting point. And from a health perspective, from a cholesterol and heart health perspective, was eating pasta covered in cheese daily a smart choice? No, but I was 20 years old and I was building habits and working away from that. So even if the very first choice that we're making is maybe not the ideal, it's okay, right? Start there and just learn and grow. And that's so much of what your podcast is about, right? And what you
A
work on
hundred
is
percent.
like that's why it's called Veg Your Best. Start where you can and do your best and just keep learning, right?
Right.
I
Two
love
rules:
it.
start, keep going.
Yeah.
It's kind of it. That's kind
Mhm.
of it, because you don't learn. I always say my dad used to laugh because he would be drawn. He loved to sail, and he couldn't walk by a book that said how to sail or how to sail better or how to sail.
Mhm.
And he was like, "There's one thing you cannot learn, and that's how to sail from a book."
Right. You got to do it.
For sure, you can't, but he couldn't not. And so this is for sure the same thing with. Y- it- you have to be brave enough to do it badly, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes I do get pushback from people who feel that I'm not taking um, a stronger, more black and white stand about it. But there are people who offer really powerful messages of all or nothing,
Mhm.
and I think it's so important that I want people to do it badly. I want people to do it incrementally if that's all they can do.
Mhm.
Because I think you do learn all sorts of strategies. I never believed I could keep my 30 plus year marriage together and do this and travel in Europe and have my life and have my kids want to come home. Or I mean, I just thought it was just going to be a deal breaker somewhere, and
Mhm.
just figure it out.
Yeah, right. And you figure it out because you're taking the time to figure it out. And look, there are some people who they hear a message, they learn a thing, and they can do it immediately. And that's why those people who are like all or nothing, do it now, here's the info, that's it. That's who those people are for
Right.
because they need to hear that. If they hear from you or from me, like just start here and make a change and figure out how to incorporate it into your life so it sticks. That doesn't resonate with them. They're like, I'm not doing that. And then they don't make a change. They need that person to be like, right now, done. But most people in all aspects of life, not just what they're eating, what they're wearing, where they spend their money, they need to be like, to take it in, understand, and make those small changes.
Yeah, I think so. I really think that and also people's attention resources are already fully allocated. people are already 100% or 130% sucked into like getting through today.
Yeah.
So uh, I think especially, um, there is always these situations where someone has a health scare and somebody's been saying to them, have you really thought about maybe getting rid of animal products? So they have the scare, but the information that they've been taking in bit by bit, now they're willing to try it. But until you
Hmm.
believe it's possible, I just don't think you even try in most cases.
Right. Yeah.
And I
It's
just wanted to be the person. I wanted there to be one older lady out there who's like, listen, if you think it's too late, too hard, or won't make enough of a difference, I want you to just listen. I just want you to listen. I want you to show up. And I get you. I totally get it. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with you. I don't think you're a weak person. I don't think you're defensive. I just think you're an absolutely normal person.
Yeah. I love it. It's so approachable. And you said something when we were chatting before about what if it was the grandmothers leading this? What what if, so often we hear it's too late, you can't make this change about so many things in our lives, especially as women. No, don't bother, you're too old. Nobody's going to listen to you. And it's such a shame because there are other cultures that understand that the older you are, the more wisdom you have. The life that you've lived means something and you have more to share. And so if we could let older women feel like we can lead this and we can show the world what we're capable of. And yeah, the thought when you said that of like showing up at your grandma's house and you don't have to explain to her that you're vegan and what it means. And she's just ready to share food with you that you can eat because she's doing it too. Like what an incredible thing. Tell me more about like where that thought came from for you. What if the grandmothers were leading this? What does that look like and mean to you?
Well, it kind of, first of all, I had two very powerful, very cool grandmothers, and all my grandparents were cool, all four, but my grandmothers were particularly cool. And I know that, um, even though this topic never ever occurred between us, if I showed up saying something, they would maybe interrogate it. They might say, "What? Why?" But they would, if I made my argument for me, I know that they would go to the mat for me 100%. I mean, I know that. I am now a grandmother of seven so far, and that's who I want to be. I want to be the person that goes to the mat for any carefully reasoned argument that my grandchildren have. Not anything they say, but anything
Mhm.
that they believe and that they've put some time into. And I have also heard since I've been in this process of becoming a professional vegan, so many people saying, "Well, okay, explain it to my grandmother. What are you
Mhm.
going to say to, or what are you going to say to my mom when she's made Sunday?" And I think how that I don't ever want to be the drag on
Mhm.
somebody's dream that is based in something full of love, full of compassion for our earth. As a grandmother, I feel like we're the stewards of this earth for these children, and we're not doing the best job. We're doing the best job we can, most of us, and there's a lot that we can do better. It's not about us being unchallenged by what we've done forever. It's about us supporting the next generation to challenge themselves in really powerful ways and being their support, their cheerleaders, even if we aren't 100% vegan, even if we can't even if we are end up being just vegging our best,
Mhm.
we can still really be allies in
Yeah.
this as in so many other ways to our young people who I think have had a really hard time lately.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't have any children myself, so I don't have like a daily interaction with the younger generation. But I actually was in an establishment yesterday and there were two kids there who were on tablets and they couldn't like interact with me without also still interacting with whatever they were doing on their tablet. And the urgency with which the one wanted to be done with me so he could go back to the tablet, it really broke my heart to see, because he can't be more than like 14, 15 maybe. And he's so tethered to that and so unable to interact. He wasn't looking me in the eyes, and it seemed so much like it was tied to the fact that he just needed to get back to whatever was going on the screen. I feel like we are doing a disservice to our young people in things like that, and we could support them in other ways where maybe they would feel empowered to go beyond the screen. And so I appreciate that what you're sharing is, like, while it's focused in like veganism, there's a lesson just in life in general of empowering and enabling and showing younger generations like what they're capable of when they can't see it themselves.
I I think we have to always model as much as we can taking on a challenge right until the end. I think also, I live in a small community during the summer, and um, more and more of my friends are the people who are modeling this end of life uh, lifestyle. And
Mm,
you see some end of life people for good reasons sometimes just disappear. They're still alive, but they
mm,
just disappear. And then you see some other people who used to be extremely vibrant and full of life showing up in a end of life way and
mhm,
reminding us that, even the biggest, strongest, most active of us can at some point slow down. And
mhm,
I think, to me, that is such a lesson, such a beautiful lesson, to see people allowing themselves to be helped up, allowing themselves to be supported by their grandkids. I'm going to get
mhm,
emotional because I'm thinking about somebody in particular. But it was a lesson to me over time. What are my grandkids going to be learning from me in terms of, I don't just stop, right? I don't just end and then kind of taper off. I want them to
right.
see me taking things on and learning things all the
Mm.
time.
Yes. Oh my goodness. How lucky are your grandchildren?
Oh,
You know?
well,
No,
we'll see.
seriously. Because I have a very different experience. My one set of grandparents passed away before I was born,
Mm,
and the other set, my grandfather died when I was young, and my grandmother was not a healthy part of my life, let's say. So I didn't get that experience of like being close to a grandparent and
mm,
experiencing what they could teach me, and the fact that not only are you showing up as like I'm here in this role, I can be a teacher, but also a modeler of life, and just being who you are and showing up the way you do shows them opportunity, shows them choice, and it's just really amazing. And we've spent so much time, I think, looking at older people going, well, you hit a point and you just kind of start to die, and you just slow down and you don't do things. And now I feel like the generation who are grandparents now are like, no, that's not what we're doing here. We're living longer than we're going to die. And it's a different perspective of like, it doesn't matter that I'm 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. If I can, I'm doing it. And I'm going to show the world that I can still do it. And just a different I think it makes making choices like going vegan make more sense,
yeah. I
you
think
know?
I think it's like anything. I always say, if you lean into being vegan, if you can do that in this world, this society, it'll just blow your mind, and you'll be thinking like, what else? Bring it
Yeah.
on. What else can I
Mhm.
do? Because there's it is much easier now than 25 years ago by
Mhm.
all reports.
Yep.
but still, it still requires you making a different choice than you have in my case, choices that I'd made for 20, 30, 40, years, things that were automatic in terms of my behavior, automatic in terms of my cravings, automatic in terms of my instincts, and in terms of my education is what was powerful. My mother believed, she had dairy cows. My mother believed that milk was the perfect food. And I was miserable about 20 minutes after I drank milk. So, and,
Same.
and she would be like, and the doctor had said to her, my pediatrician said to her, listen, I think she's just not tolerating milk. And my mom just was like, okay. And she just got in the car with like nonsense.
Right. Got in the
And she
car,
was a
handed you
nurse.
milk.
She was a nurse. She was married to a physician. It just made no sense to her. So you just can't hear things that make no sense to you.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Oh man, what a whew. When it just I'm so moved by it. By what you're doing and the way that you are showing up, and you've been making these choices for, like you said, 30, 40, maybe even 50 years of your life, and you make a change. And now, like when we're considering veganism, we talk so much about the food because we eat 3 times a day. It is a big part. But if you travel with your family, if you have regular traditions with family, and we can talk about a traditional family very much like it sounds like you have kids, you have grandkids, but like we can have
Mhm.
families that we have not birthed, and we can still have these traditions and stuff. So I just don't want listeners to feel like I'm alienating
Absolutely.
them, because I'm in that group of not having family not birthed. And when we think, oh, we always go to this place for vacation, we always go this campground, or whatever it is that you've always done with your family, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, I won't go to this resort because they have dolphins in captivity that you can swim with. So I don't want my money to go there, and I don't want to be associated with that. So now we have to find a new place. Or, there's lots of fishing going on at this campground, and I don't want to be around that. And I don't want to see those fish being murdered. And now your whole family has to, oh, this means something to you. So then it becomes like this group that you're with, where's your level of respect?
Yes.
Because if you are like, I'm not going to go there, then it's like, all right, does grandma not go on vacation with us anymore? Or are we looking at other ways to spend this time together that honor the choices that you're making and the ability to spend time with one another?
Yeah. In my situation, I do not make lines in the sand for anybody else's behavior ever. So
Mhm.
that's just I don't feel that I just don't have the comfort level with anybody else's behavior being a massive problem for me. I can
Mhm.
like it, I cannot like it. I can own my preferences. Obviously, I don't go we've talked about it on the podcast, the vegan veto. My kids, if we all go together right now, I think there's 15 of us all together. Um, if there's nothing for me, all 15 people don't spend their money in that place. So
Mhm.
I don't I don't make it so they can't find, like, I also have a daughter-in-law who's from Madrid, and I still find Spain a challenge in terms of uh,
Mm.
whereas Italy and France, well, I'm going to France in just a couple weeks, and so we'll see how I find France right now. But yeah, so there are these things. I don't refuse to go to certain countries because I know they have a meat dominant or fish dominant
Mhm.
or a person a way of living that is not vegan. I go to non-vegan restaurants and order vegan things to the
Mhm.
best of their ability to create, because I feel like that's my role, is to demonstrate in a non-vegan community how to be as vegan as possible.
Mhm.
So it is not to separate myself in any way. It's to show up as the vegan in a non-vegan world. So that is where I see myself. And I think it could be argued with that that's not entirely, that there's some hypocrisy to that. And I'm sure it's possible. I think the idea of hypocrisy keeps people from leaning into veganism and plant-based lifestyles In fact, that's what I think plant-based is about. So people can avoid well, if I say vegan, that means everything's on the table
Mhm.
today. So I can't be kind of vegan. I can't be learning to be vegan. Can only be vegan or not be vegan. And I feel like that's not very helpful. So plant-based can be more helpful for some people, but I
Mhm.
also think it is okay to be terrible at something. It's okay to be bad in whatever spiritual tradition or any ethical tradition you have. It's okay to not be there yet.
Mhm.
Um, and so if I had woken up when I was 7 or 12 or 18 and been vegan, I might have a different point of view. But since it took me so long, I feel like I need to embrace it. That's kind of my message, that it can
Mhm.
change and it can start bit by bit.
Yeah. And I think, with the being the vegan and the non-vegan community, the non-vegan world, the non-vegan restaurant, I mean, that's I think why we have the vegan options that we do, because vegans showed up in non-vegan spaces and said, "Hey, here's how you can accommodate me and all of these 15 non-vegans I'm bringing with me." And and so when they realize, okay, am if I can have a couple of options, and some restaurants go above and beyond that, but many it's kind of like, here's your one or two options to choose from. But if they're like, if I can provide this and it's not adding to my costs, it's actually bringing in more revenue, because like you said, the vegan veto really does have pull, and it means something where when you're with a group, you're going to find the non-vegan establishment that has vegan options so everyone can be accommodated. You're not Most often than not, you're not going to force the vegan to just have, like you said, Diet Coke and French fries. We're way beyond that point because there are so many places that offer it. So there is meaning in showing up in those spaces and saying, hey, here's what I need, and letting them accommodate you and not inconveniencing the group you're with, or because that you're right, there is a bit of that too where people are like, well, I'm just not going to do that, because then how do I tell everyone, well, we can't do this because I don't want to. There's a way to still be part of the world you're a part of and make choices that mean something to you.
Totally. And I think that can be very daunting for people who are thinking about how's that going to work.
Mhm.
And I I was having dinner at the airport, late lunch, early dinner at the airport the other day, and at Logan Airport in Boston, and I cannot remember. It was a Japanese restaurant in Terminal C, and the woman there asked me what I was eating. The woman just sat down next to me, asked, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's the kale salad with tofu added." So,
Mhm.
and she looked at it. She goes, I'm on a podcast. So it was like a retching face she made, a retching face. Just like she's sitting next to me. She asked me what I'm
Right.
eating, and then she reacts to it with a retching face. And and then a woman about 3 seats down goes, "Oh my God, that sounds awful." And I'm like, "Okay." So I put my AirPod back in my ear.
Yeah. Conversation over.
And the woman who the server, it was one of those places where they just have one person behind the bar and serving everybody. And she goes,
Mhm.
"It's really good. I like it." And I just smiled at her and ignored. But this is something. Um, it's not to discount that things like that happen in the life.
Mhm.
But if I had gone to a completely vegan place, I would not have had that situation, most likely.
Mhm.
But I also wouldn't have had an opportunity to put a little earworm into somebody's ear that those are choices, those are foods. And
Yeah.
there's a lady, in her 60s sitting there happily munching on something like that. I'm not living in in a ashram.
Mhm.
I'm going to Florida.
Yeah. Right. Vegans exist in the real world out amongst everyone else.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I also was able to thank the establishment for having that really nice option that you could add tofu to, because sometimes, I mean, I like to make sure I'm getting plenty of protein throughout the day,
Mhm.
which I didn't worry about in the very beginning quite as much. but now I'm getting older and everything. I want to make sure that I'm getting. I just make. I don't even have numbers that I'm trying to get, any macro numbers, but I do just try to make sure. What's my word? I just pay more attention to it where I used to not worry about it at all. So anyway, I just been very grateful to this restaurant in the sea terminal.
Yeah, to be able to get a vegan option at an airport that you can add tofu to, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's growing, and there are more options everywhere. Food options, clothing options, entertainment. There is consideration and there are changes happening. So we can still live a normal life. We're just not asking animals to lose theirs for us to do it. That's the bottom line,
Right.
And
Right.
everything else, we kind of can just be in a normal space, just eating something different, wearing something a little different. And, our clothes don't look different. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't buy wool sweaters anymore. There are plenty of warm sweaters made from not wool that are just as beautiful and comfortable. And, it really is simple changes that as you learn about them, you can make them over time.
And it's interesting you bring up the wool thing. I at one point, I'm not a huge fan of synthetics because I think they have a tremendous downstream problem in every direction. Also, I think we have an inflated idea of how clean and natural items like wool are, because wool is treated. I had Aline Dewar, who's a vegan interior designer from Australia, on the podcast, and she was like, "No, the way they have to, not even if you take the filth that comes from animal agriculture out of the equation, the way that wool is treated." And the chemicals that go on it for dyeing, for washing, there's all sorts of terms. I realize it is not just like, oh, here's this clean, lovely, fluffy, beautiful fabric that just came naturally off the animal.
Right.
Or here's this, PVC type of thing that has with a forever chemical imprint on our environment. So we have an inflated feeling about how natural these traditional fabrics and traditional items are.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I'll be sure to link to your podcast episode in the show notes with that designer, so people who are interested in that can get some more information. Because I think that there is this idea that, like, oh, well, it comes from an animal and that's more natural than, like you said, kind of piecing together these plastics and forever chemicals to create a sweater that mimics that. But yeah, there is a lot to, like you said, you even taking away, like, as a vegan, the idea that we are harming these sheep. People think, oh, well, they grow the wool. You have to shear them. But we have to shear them, one, because they've been bred that way.
Yeah.
And then the process of, like, what is it called? Mulesing, I think, where they cut like that. They cut a portion of the sheep.
Oh, the skin at the base of it.
Skin. Yep. And so now they're in constant pain. They're infested with, flies and larvae and stuff. And yeah, then they're under this heavy amount of wool that they've grown because that's how they've been bred. And the shearing, just like when, in animal agriculture, it's about numbers, it's about money. These are commodities. You got to bring it in. And so people are not lovingly shearing these sheep. They are rough, and it is painful, and it is awful and cruel. And just when you put all that together, it's just, I think we still romanticize a lot of that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think that romanticization is important to just challenge in our heads, because it's really hard to get rid of. If you grew up with kids' toys or beautiful books or Heidi, the story Heidi, I mean, you just can't. The milking of the goats. I mean, it's just there's we don't, and it does, and it's also not to discount that this is part of our human history, that we evolved in certain ways to figure out certain challenges. How were we going to live in places in the winter, in rocky environments? How were we going to function and live and reproduce and take care of our kids? So we had to make these decisions. Right now, we have to make other decisions. And
Yeah.
and so this is part of human history, is solving some of these issues about maybe synthetics can be done in a way that is less harmful. Maybe factories can be automated in certain ways where there is no slave labor and child labor, in on underwriting how cheap our clothing has become, how cheap things are. So there's a lot of issues. Human history does not stop when you go vegan. It does not, because it's just, there are new challenges. And how do we take care of other human beings and other earthlings? There's no perfect answer. And so I think so many people, that's the argument. I have a podcast, I think, coming out next week about logical fallacies in arguing on both sides. But there's a sense that you shouldn't become vegan unless it's 100% an answer, perfect, cannot be assailed in any way, and all human beings will be fine from now on. That is just, it's logically ridiculous, and we don't have to participate in those arguments. We can still just move forward the best way we can and learn what we can learn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If we're not challenging and if we are not honoring ourselves and like, this is the best thing for me, like that's when we do stop evolving, you know. If all of us are like, you know what, this is what it is, and even though I feel differently and would like the world to be different, I can't change anything. I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. That's where we stop, and the evolution of us doesn't keep growing. And like you said, you look back at history and we've found a solution to a problem, and then life changes because we change and the world changes. And so we either change and keep going and learn and grow, or we stop. And then what does that mean? Kind of the end of humans as a whole if we stop learning
Right.
and growing and changing. And so yeah, like
Or we romanticize the past to some mythical past, which
yep.
I see this in politics right now. We romanticize some idea of the past where it wasn't that things were right. It's just most of us weren't thinking about any of those issues.
Yes. I've got a lot of feelings about that. We'll end up a 3-hour podcast, Michelle, and no, we're not going to do that, but my goodness.
Welcome to my support group.
Ooh, yeah, that is, but yeah, the lesson here, right, is you want to do something different, you want to go vegan, you don't have to be perfect, you understand what it is. And like, there are people who've said to me, so I want to do it, but I feel like vegans are pretty judgy about not being vegan. So what should I call myself when I'm still, I'm waiting for my shoes to wear out, and then I'll replace them with vegan ones, but I have leather shoes now. So what do I do while I'm waiting for those to run out? Or I've stopped eating meat, but I still have cheese when I go out in public. And I would say, yeah, don't call yourself a vegan, because I think that it dilutes the word in a way that then people don't understand what it means, and we use words to understand each other. So if I say to you, I'm vegan, and you know what vegan means, and you're having me over for dinner, you now know you're not going to make meat, dairy, eggs, you're not going to include honey. And that's how now you know this is how I can make sure we can all eat together. But if you think you know what vegan means, and then somebody shows up and they're like, "Oh, I'm vegan, but I'm having chicken today." Now you're like, "Huh, what? I thought vegan meant you don't eat chicken." But this person says they're vegan and they're eating chicken. Now I'm confused. And so I do feel like if you're not vegan, you're still using animals in some way. Then if you are having a conversation, don't say, "I'm vegan." Say, "My goal is to be vegan. I'm working on being vegan." Or maybe you don't need to label yourself yet at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember having tremendous discomfort about this. I would say I'm making more vegan choices. Can you help me find something vegan? Or I'm trying to eat in a way that is vegan. Can you help me see if there's anything in the ingredients? So I would say what I
hmm
was doing, the action, and I
yeah,
personally consider veganism a practice. I do not consider it a done deal. I think it's
mhm,
like yoga. You are not yoga. You are not, you have not reached any kind of a non, you know nothing about somebody because they do yoga. You really,
mhm,
you just know that they say that word.
right.
But yoga is your practice of that tradition. For me,
Mhm,
veganism is my practice. And when things go poorly, like I end up with a prescription and I see there's no option currently, I just
mhm,
have to like own that and think it, and it doesn't mean I don't take that prescription in my case.
mhm,
I also don't tell anybody else what they need to do. But if I feel like this is necessary for me for
mhm,
whatever reason, and you define necessary your own way, but
yeah.
even just by having made that thought process, to me that's part of a vegan practice.
Yeah. And in the definition of the word, it says as far as possible and practicable. So if you're weighing, do I take this medicine where I can then it help with whatever it is that it's supposed to do. It'll make you feel better, be better. It's part of your mental health practice, whatever it is that you're doing. If your choice is, I take this medicine, which has been tested on animals, it probably includes animal products. Maybe it's in a gelatin capsule and it's the only way it comes, but I can be a functioning or healthy version of me where I can make vegan choices. I can help people understand veganism. I can spread the word and whatever it is and live my best life versus I won't take this medicine because I'm vegan, because it was tested on animals, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm unwell. And now I'm not a good representative. And I can't help anyone, not myself, not the animals. And I feel like making the decision to take that medicine, like you said, is veganism in practice. And do we wish that all the medication could be free of animal products? Of course we do. And maybe one day they will be. Maybe one day we'll have enough tests where we're not testing on animals anymore. And we have the funding that understands that there are tests that exist where we don't have to do that anymore. But we're not there yet. And so, as possible and practical, that's what that means. It doesn't mean, well, today I feel like having a cheese pizza.
Right.
That's not as far as possible and practicable because you have other
Absolutely.
options. But
Right.
to make that choice of, do I take this medicine and be well or not? That I think still fits within that.
And I think it's part of this, in my next week's podcast, talking about this idea of logical fallacies, this idea that people will say, well, listen, if you were going to die and you had to eat, you're on a desert island. Why do they always have it to be on desert
I
islands? But you're
know.
on a desert island with either a pig or a fishing net or something. Would you? I'm like, okay, just stop it. Just like, what would you? Would you eat a vegan meal if it was the last? I mean, what would you?
Right, and that's the thing, right? So they're always like, "Oh, desert island, blah blah blah." But how about in your real life right now where there are so many vegan options that you could live a full, healthy, happy life without ever encountering another animal product, without ever consuming another animal product? Would you do it? Because that's your reality. I'm
Right.
never going to be trapped on a desert island with a pig and a fishing net. But you are living that now. So what's your choice? And they do not wanna hear
Right.
that.
No, right. And so when I work with people with Veg Your Best, I always work with them this idea of like, we start with what are you doing now? Because I bet most anybody, even people who really have just kind of go, oh, well, vegan, ugh." They eat something vegan. They eat something vegan right now. And so you start with just like, what do you already eat with pleasure or with satisfaction that's
Mhm.
that's vegan or could be veganized super easily,
Yep.
super easily. And then just more of that,
Mhm.
more of that. You don't necessarily have to go for what will I eat? Will I not be able to have which one of my first clients years ago said, but I want to have wedding cake at my daughter's wedding. And I said, okay, that's, let's just take that completely off. That's never going to be an issue for you ever again. And by the time her wedding came around, she had another. She put together a vegan wedding cake. So the big grand one was not vegan, but there was a lovely option of a beautiful cake that was vegan also
Yeah.
on the table for other people. So she solved the problem once she stopped making it a
Yeah.
problem.
Hmm. I love that.
So we just need to start that. We all of us do this. We think of the worst case scenario, the thing that can't ever work, the grandmother who will not be on board, whatever it is, we think of that thing that's impossible instead of really looking at what is possible right now. And could I just do a little bit more of that for right now?
Mhm.
Because so much the road rises up to greet you if you just stay focused on what's possible and moving forward.
Yeah. So powerful in its simplicity, right? It it can be simple, and we make it so complicated because you're right, we're so caught up in that one event or that one moment in time where it just can't possibly work. But if we let it go and we just focus on right now, which is the only time we can make changes anyway,
Right.
and just do what we know we want and what we know is best for us because that's what is our value. Like we're exploring, people come to you exploring the idea of veganism because they already have an idea that they want to explore it,
Right.
and so they, in their heart, that's what's right for them, and they just don't know how to do it, and so they need the help. But
And they don't usually need help very long. Usually they just
right.
need someone to like tell them that the things that they're making obstacles are actually indicators of the direction that they're going to go in, and they don't have to surmount every obstacle this week
Mhm.
or even this year, but they're going to make so much progress. It's like learning. I'm a lifelong foreign language learner, lover. And I will never be fluent in any language but maybe barely English. And that doesn't mean that I don't get tremendous satisfaction and fun out of it. And over time there are the things that you can't do, and then there are things you realize, oh, I made a mistake there. And that's like such a huge, huge shift when you
Yeah.
notice the error that you made in a foreign language. And you
Yeah.
go, oh, okay. And now you're able to kind of look for what are the solutions to that? Do I need to memorize something, or do I need to practice saying it so it comes out, like chunk it with a phrase? So it's
Mhm.
the same thing. I always say how you go vegan is how you do absolutely everything. You don't do it perfectly when you start.
Right. I love that. And I can so relate to, because I've been learning French for the last 5 years, and I took Spanish in high school, I took German in college. I too love learning languages, and I just like you, I'm like, I don't think I'll ever be fluent, but yeah, when I'm working out a sentence or trying to think in French, and realize, "Oh, I just had a thought in French." And, "Huh, oh my goodness, what a moment," but I have to work at it. It is a learning, but I love it because it means something to me, just like going vegan.
And
Every
I
step
promise
that
you,
I
if you
move, I
if you were fluent suddenly tomorrow in French, it wouldn't be that fun. You'd be
right.
great. It'd be
Yeah,
awesome. But then
right.
if somebody who loves languages is going to be like, okay, well, now I got to get back to German because I've
Mhm.
lost all my German.
Yep. That is true. Yeah, it is. It's fun. There's so much to learn, and when we can show up curious and open, there's just no limit to the change we can make, and like just the way that we can improve our lives and the lives of those around us. So that's the other thing, right? When we show up and we make choices that are meaningful to us and people around us see it, it empowers them to make choices that are meaningful to them. And whether they go vegan too, or they uncover something about themselves that they've been missing because they didn't think they could look for it. Like what a message we're sending, really.
Yeah, because we've told people that they can do things like now, like when I was young, this was new, the idea of jogging. But now it's pretty normal to see older than typical women, not necessarily athletic, but suddenly have a goal to do a 5K or a half marathon or even a marathon. That's not crazy anymore. It would have been super crazy in the 70s when I was in high school. So that did not happen. So we give people permission, to women especially, who before Title IX, I think I graduated the year from high school, the year Title IX went in, and we'll see if Title IX exists in the future. But this idea that young women were encouraged to be in sports and they had to have options to be in sports in public schools, um, that that was not normal until people kind of demanded it.
Yeah.
These ideas of what is normal. So right now, veganism is not maybe totally mainstream yet, but it's so much more mainstream than it was.
Yes.
So much more.
So much more. Michele, this conversation has been amazing and I have loved it, and I cannot wait for my listeners to hear it. But I've got one more question for you.
Thank you, Kimberly. What is it? Bring it on. I'm going to guess.
How does hummus show up in your life?
So regularly, young lady, it does. Hummus is one of. I want to keep it short, but one of the big issues is my husband when he says, "I want to make hummus today," which he's the one who makes the hummus, but I make the chickpeas. I do the. And I like personally to have the rhythm of soaking them overnight in aromatics and then cooking them in a more standard way, hour or 2 hours, whatever it takes, depending on the chickpeas. He is a convert to the Instapot. He likes an instant gratification. Yeah, no, I had the idea for hummus because I want to make it today, not because I want to make it tomorrow.
Yep.
So that's hummus. And I like a more tahini forward hummus. He likes a more lemon forward hummus.
Okay.
So we are, I guess, a mixed hummus marriage. And the other thing is, I was a witness to a very testy hummus. I don't know if this has ever come up on your podcast about the hummus. Hummus, as I understand it, in Arabic means chickpea. And I was in a situation, so hummus al tahini, I think, is when you have chickpeas with tahini, which is what most of us understand as hummus in the United States.
Okay.
I was where someone said something about white bean hummus or something, and a person of Arabic descent got really annoyed and talked about colonializing. And I see his point, colonializing hummus. He goes, no, you can have you can have white beans and put tahini in it. That is fine. You just can't call it hummus.
Yeah. That's
so I think it's a good thing to remember.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've never had a conversation about it, but I have heard that. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So it's always good to know where our words come from, because we just call hummus now, and we know the end product, and we go, oh, beet hummus. Oh, what was it? What was one I heard about? Pickle hummus. I think pickle hummus actually does have chickpeas in it, but some of them don't.
Yeah. So
that's hummus.
Yeah, let's honor the hummus.
I brought the hummus.
You did. Michele, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you, Kimberly. It was such a pleasure getting to know you for a year through your podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Welcome back. Michele said so many inspiring and motivating things, but my absolute favorite was the reminder that it's okay to be bad at something. Don't expect to be perfect when you're starting something new, including embarking on your vegan journey. Veg Your Best and Did You Bring the Hummus exists to lift you up on your way. To connect with Michele, visit her website, veganatanyage.com, and follow her on Instagram at veg_your_best. You'll find these links in the show notes. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving it, please give Did You Bring the Hummus a 5-star rating and leave a review. It's an easy way to keep supporting the show. Be sure to share these episodes with your friends. If you're finding something good here, they will too. If you're a vegan or know a vegan who would be a great fit for the podcast, follow the Be a Guest link in the show notes. Fill out the quiz and I'll be in touch. Get on my mailing list and stay up to date on all things Did You Bring the Hummus? Get more info on how you can sign up for a meditation, one of my programs, or to support the podcast via the links in the show notes. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Did You Bring the Hummus? And visit my website, didyouBringTheHummus.com, for more information about me, updates on what I'm working on, new podcast episodes, and all things vegan. Finally, I would love to hear from you. What do you need help with? Is there a topic you want to hear covered on a future episode? DM me on Instagram or send me an email at info@didyouBringTheHummus.com. Thanks for listening. Thank you.